It's the peak of the rut now, and I'm not scared to make some noise and try calling these deer in. They're very callable this time of year, and I've been calling bucks in for the last couple days, so I'm hitting the horns. This young buck was actually in New York, and I filmed him up there. But it's neat footage, and it's a buck I rattled in, and so since how I'm mostly making this a video about bucks that I called in and bucks working scrapes, I thought this video would fit in good. So this buck I rattled in a late afternoon. I think it was probably about 4 o'clock. I rattled and called this buck in out of a bedding area. So it was fun to watch him come in and work that scrape, and then he headed up to the ag fields. Doesn't take long at all, and sure enough, I called in a buck. Here he comes. If you look closely, you can see there's a scrape right in front of this buck, and he comes in and sticks his nose in it and works it a little bit. This is a legal buck in Pennsylvania because he's 3 on a side, but it's definitely not what I'm looking for. But it's still fun to watch these young bucks come in and do what you want them to. I had pretty good success rattling bucks in this fall. This buck turns and comes right up where I had walked in the morning and is really close to me. I think he was probably about 7 or 8 yards from the bottom of my tree. So it's always really cool when they come in that close. Here, I believe he smelled some bush that my clothes brushed up against when I walked in. You can see when he walks away, he pinches his tail really tight. I think he was a little bit nervous, but not really nervous enough to run. But he knew something wasn't quite right, and he sniffs around here and tucks his tail really tight. It was also really still, so it could be that my thermals were falling down the hill as well. But he got a little whiff of something he didn't like. I was not worried about shooting this buck anymore, so I probably wasn't being super careful, and I'm not sure if he caught my wind again here or if he heard the other buck coming in behind me, but he's definitely alert. This buck comes in behind me and I just film him with my GoPro, because if I turn the main camera, I'm going to scare the other deer out and he'll probably blow down the hill and scare everything. But this buck is also a buck I've seen multiple times in this woods, but it's not a shooter. This young buck was on this property a lot, and I got to see him a lot of times, and kind of interesting. But fast forward a couple weeks in, the first Monday of rifle season, the neighbor kid tried to shoot this buck with a shotgun, and I'm not sure where he hit it, but I helped him track it for a little while, and we had a big pile of hair, but we never did find it, and we really didn't find much blood, so I think he finally survived it, but I do not know if he survived the hunting season at all, but I'm hoping he did. He's a nice young buck.
Oh, it's 8:15. I came in here yesterday and hunted just down the ridge about 100 yards. And I saw a bunch of deer, does cross here in the morning, so I decided to set this stand this morning. And of course all the does went under my other tree over there. But I just got done doing a rattling sequence. Called in the same buck I called in yesterday. And about 7 a.m. earlier this morning, I rattled and called in the 6-point, also the same one I rattled in yesterday. So rattled in 2 bucks yesterday, 2 bucks today, both non-shooters. So I'm almost ready to give up on this place. It's the peak of the rut, and I haven't got pictures or seen a buck I want to shoot. I was going to do an all-day sitting here, but you never know when a big buck can show up in November, so I think I'll sit here till 11, but yeah, kind of starting to lose hope in this spot. It's a big bedding area. You'd think there'd be a mature buck in here trolling this and hurling all these does, but I haven't seen them yet, so set it out here and see what happens. Oh man. Well, that fails. I'm still a little shook up. I just had 2 bucks run a doe by me at like 45 yards. I didn't get them on my main camera. I didn't have time to turn it on, so I don't have any footage of them. But the one little buck caught my movement when I took my bow off the hanger. And he started snorting and made the doe and the buck nervous. The doe was gonna come right down this old skid trail. Well, he messed that up. Anyway, the buck was pretty nice. I got a little rattled. I ranged him, and then I used the wrong pin. Anyway, I missed him. That stinks. Alright, well, I didn't do an intro for a while, so I thought I would here. I had a really nice buck up here on top of this ridge this morning and missed him. Didn't range it correctly and shot way underneath him, so that was really disappointing. But on the other hand, it's nice to know there's a good buck in here, and he went down in the ridge where it's thick, and I'm hoping that he batted up in here with his doe. He was chasing doe pretty hard. Couple bucks with him. I'd really like to be down the ridge a little bit further, or around the corner of the ridge closer to the cornfield, but I just don't have the wind for it. and I don't think I can get away with making much noise in there. So I'm actually going to go back and sit the same stand. Might regret that, but I also don't think I can realistically set up anywhere else without blowing them out. So I'm just going to have to hope that doe comes up. My gut feeling is that she's going to work into the wind and head to the fields to the side. There's cornfield behind me and a cornfield to the right, and I think she's going to go to the right and work into the wind. That's my guess. So I guess it's worth a shot. It's November. I could have another buck come in from somewhere else completely different. You never know. So, oh man, it's November 8th. I hope I can get it done.
This little deer is actually a buck. It's just a little button buck. I've never seen a button buck rub like this, but he rubs on the tree and works this scrape. I was still hoping that the big buck I saw in the morning was still around, so I decided to grunt a little bit and see if he was in the thick stuff, just see if I could intimidate him enough to pull him up out. It's also kind of fun to see how these little bucks react, and I kind of like messing with their minds with the grunt call. Well, this little buck decided he had enough and he heads back down over the ridge, and I decided to keep sitting out till dark and see if the big guy shows up. As this buck disappears down over the ridge, I can still hear another deer or two down in this thick brush. There's a bunch of thick brush in here, and the visibility is pretty poor. So I decided to do some doe bleats and just see if I could get some deer interested and come up out of the brush so that I could see what it was. I'm losing light fast now and can hear the deer walking out toward the cornfield, and I never did get to see them. They stayed in the brush, so I don't know if it was the doe and the big buck or not. Guess I'll never know, but sat it out the rest of the evening and did not see any more deer.